Hello there. How's everybody?
Doing good,
Hello,
Mels.
hello.
Adrian, were you ever able to watch the video?
Um, I think it because I use my work computer. I just
Oh
got
yeah,
my
it won't show, no, it won't show on that.
yeah, so
It'll
I got
it'll it'll ban it on that. Yeah.
yeah, I just got
Um,
um
you got to put it on. You remember I talked very first night I met y'all need to invest in having your own. This is one of those cases. No, it won't show on a school system computer. Uh,
yeah, and even now they have us locked in even when we're home.
yeah.
So got an iPad from somebody today, so that's what I'm on
What I
now.
mean, you're not. They track them. I mean, they're not going to let you do anything at home you can't do at school.
Yeah,
And because of YouTube's policy now on monetization and some of the other things, um, they're not school system don't let you play those because they're afraid they're going to get a copyright or have to pay or all that business. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's why I have just like the computer. I got so aggravated right before Christmas. My old Toshiba i7 machine that I gave a King's ransom for 8 years ago. They said it was too out of date to use duo security. And so I
yeah,
keep my own stuff. Now I have a laptop that the college bought me that cost more than my first new car. Cost more than my first new car. Um, and but I don't do my classes from there because again when I'm hooked into the internet at work, I have trouble with my Zoom and I have trouble with videos and all that stuff. So I just have my own stuff.
yeah,
So I have my Road Dog that I've got. I replaced it with the new Lenovo i7 machine, and I got two i3 machines. My i3 one is there, and one's at the big house is my backups. They're already on and running in case I drop tonight. I've got them on the alternative internet already, but it's crazy that I have 5 laptops now. But wherever I am, I need to be able to work. I can't depend on the college. I'm seriously, they bought me a $2,500 i7 laptop that
wow,
is about like a boat anchor. Um, I mean, it's a nice paperweight, but because they've got so much security on it, I can't use it.
yeah,
So I don't know. And that's kind of one of the themes for the evening is what's the purpose for the things that you do? I mean, if the purpose was just to say we bought Dell an i7 laptop because he wanted one, well, they did that. Now they didn't say that he can actually use it now. So they don't
right,
support the use of laptops at Gardner Webb. Still, people got old desktops, and I said I am of the middle of the last century, but we don't. Our technology doesn't need to still be in last century. Get me a laptop. Well, they got me one, but I can't use it. It's
yeah,
kind of like we were, tonight we're going to talk about facilities. I told you I went to that new middle school that first opened that was state of the art and security in down below Siler City on the way to 421 out of town down there. And the building was the most secure building I've ever seen, except the kids were just standing out in the yard. What are you trying to protect here? What's the purpose? And we'll talk about that in facilities tonight. I want to go through each of those. Um, you must be intentional, but you got to know what you're trying to do. Just being able to put the checks in the box don't mean that you're safe if you don't understand why you're trying to do what you're doing. So let me run through the things that caught my eye. Welcome everybody from this week. Um, you know, discussion board number 15 is you pick the items that resonate with you. And Tommy's, all of his were him being champions for students, and I'm appreciative of that. If you want to look at a perfect policy on Title IX sexual harassment, it's Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. Tanya shared that one with us. That one has been updated to reflect the changes from 2021. Most of these policies are still lagging behind on that. You got to go to the police first. Don't start the investigation. All that stuff that came in. You can't be the one that does the investigation. Um, Winston-Salem Forsyth has just amended their new policy, and it's perfect, and that's under Tanya's. Um, Emmy pointed out, and this is a good catch, that you need to keep up on employee assistance and benefits because those can change mid-year with the changes in the law on January the 1st. There was a bunch of changes to employee assistance this year. That's a good catch, Jimmy. Liz talked about if you don't have a facilities checklist, you need to make one. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight is even if you have one, you got to understand what am I trying to protect here? What is my purpose? You're trying to keep kids safe. It's not about keeping the building safe. It's about keeping kids safe. And too much time, a lot of these checklists that I've seen people use are all about, keeping the building safe. And I'm like, but kids are in danger here. Well, but the building's safe. Well, that's not the purpose. Melody did a walkthrough with her principal and said it was very thoughtful, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for thoughtful on these assessments. And then Brandon made a good point. Now, Brandon, you have struck a nerve with me. When I was elementary principal, we went through a major renovation and building program. And one of the things that I learned real quickly is the construction people don't care about you, the safety or comfort of your kids. They're about getting done whatever is the cheapest and easiest for them. And they will put you at danger and don't care. Do not care whatsoever. Brandon talked about they have a fence up that needs to come down, but they just hadn't had time, or it's not on their priority list. But it's making kids unsafe. They're having to be supervised to move around, and it's if you don't do that, and there's not enough really supervision to go around. I'm just kind of reading into this. It's an unsafe situation, but the construction people don't care. And they'll make every excuse in the world and try to claim this and that and the other's policy or that no. Your job is to keep kids safe. We were building a primary wing onto our main pod building when I was an elementary principal. And they were supposed to build the walls all the way out and then close it and cover it in and then do the interior demolition of the wall from the existing building into the new building, which is, as you know, is quite expensive. So they just, when nobody was looking one day, drove a loader up and knocked the whole end wall of our building out in wintertime. I can't make that up. Knocked the end wall out of our building, no way to pin it off, and just put plastic up and said, oops, sorry, we were just out of sequence on the work. No, you weren't. You know what you did. You did it intentionally. They did it, when we weren't there and over the weekend and tore the end of our building off. Hopefully you won't have people as blatant as that. But if you're under construction, or if you've got any of that kind of work or maintenance workers, don't just say, well, that's their job and they'll do it. And if it don't, it's your job is safety of your children. And construction people, that they don't care about that at all. Not part of their ethic at all. And they can leave you in some bad situations. So let's look at the assessment inventory. And what I want to talk about a little bit, and I want you to talk and share with me your thoughts on why we do what we do. So let me share my screen. And I want us to remember to be in the mindset of not protecting the building, but protecting the children in the building. Okay. Everybody understands that you should not have cars and pedestrians in the same place. Everybody understands parents are all entitled. They're all in a hurry. They want to drop their kids off in the bus line. They don't want to wait. Why everybody in the world has to drive their kids to school now, I don't know. So you got to have them separated. You need them clearly posted. Now, I forget who said, and it wasn't an eye-catching thing, but somebody talked about their SRO is out at the car line and not at the bus line. I get that, the way that parents drive and will ignore school personnel holding up stop and don't go. I get that. But in a perfect world, you'd have good security on that, or authority, not security. You'd have good authority on both the car and bus line. I used to do the car line and dare them to run over me, and then put the SRO on the bus line as principal. So unfortunately, that'd be one of those things that you would like to delegate to your assistant principals as a principal, but you got to have somebody out there that they will with the authority to make them stop and behave themselves. And you can't have one SRO in two places. Can't be on the car lot and bus lot. And so, and don't put kids out there in crossing guard uniforms. You might as well just paint a target on their back. Those days are long gone. Those kids will get run over. So from the first one here is the objective is to make sure nobody gets run over, and signs and people won't. You got to have people with authority to make it work. Otherwise, it'll still be chaos. No matter how many signs you got, no matter how many cones you got out there, it'll be chaos unless you got people with authority that make them do what they're supposed to do. And the first day you weren't there, they'll just revert back to whatever foolishness they always did. It doesn't matter that they've done the same thing for the last 49 days in a row. One day you weren't there, then that means the rules aren't there. That's the way people are stupid nowadays. If you don't believe it, just go to Walmart and look at people. They're dumb. Directional signs, video cameras. Somebody put in their response that they turned in a couple of work orders. I would turn in a work order on a bad camera every week. They would be aggravated. They hated me, or they'd fix it or both. If I was supposed to have a camera there, I would turn in a work order every week. Doors. The whole notion of doors, folks, is to keep people out of your building that aren't supposed to be in your building. They don't work if they're propped open. If teachers don't wear their ID where they can get in and out, and you have to work some workaround where they'll prop a door open. They forgot their ID today. Not a big deal, but it's one of those IDs that triggers the door to open and close. Guess what they'll do if they get to the door and with their class and realize that they don't have their ID to get back in? They'll kick a rock or prop the door open. Oh, it's just for a little while we're outside. That's one of the reasons why, although it sounds insignificant, teachers need to wear their IDs every day. If it's the ID badge that opens the doors, they need to wear them every day, and it controls access. Then they got to have them. Otherwise, they'll prop doors open, folks. You understand that? They'll prop doors open. I like being able to shut down different parts of the building, especially for after school activities where everybody doesn't have access all over your building. Absent that, you need to have some supervision in your building if you're going to have groups, and try to have them in an area that you can keep contained. For example, like in a high school, if you're going to have clubs in the afternoon, put them on, a part of the building that they can't access everywhere else. If you got mobile units, something. And now the teacher that runs it will want them in their room, but then you'll have kids scattered all over your building. You need to do some access control, especially in the after school activities. You need to do access control. That's very important. Let's see. Safety devices, everything works, locks. They're locking their doors behind them. They don't dog the doors down, stick something in it so they can come back in. First aid kits, safety posters, fire evacuation plans. Make sure that your main office is not party central or busy central where everything in the world is going on, so the people watching the door and letting people in and out can see who it is. And tell them if don't worry about hurting somebody's feelings, not letting them in. If you're not sure, you need to call me or the SRO or somebody. There's a reason why we have you controlling that door. Ladders stored in closets, tiles, chemicals, all the normal stuff. But the notion on your assessment inventory is there may be things that's not on this list. Look at it with a set of eyes. How am I going to keep all the kids in this building safe? Knowing that teachers will do things that are convenient for them, not intending to harm anybody. They've been there for 20 years, never been in trouble, never been problems until that one time. And so the reality is if you get a kid harmed, your career is severely limited. You need to understand that it's a career stopper or sometimes ender. If you get a kid, and it doesn't matter that it wasn't you that you did, but you need to do everything that you can. You don't need to obsess over it. But my takeaway at the end of that is I would not delegate this responsibility to somebody else. I would make sure I put my eyes on it every 2 weeks to make sure something new hadn't happened. Because you just don't know. And so I'll end with my crazy facility story. We were preparing for a state audit at Druid Hills out on the off Tron, North Tron, going back north and west out of town, out of Charlotte, mostly north. And we were getting ready for the state auditor was coming because they were on the persistently dangerous watch list. And so I had one of the APs and we were going around and I was going over this very list. I created this list in Charlotte from working with the state assessors and the state auditors. And so we were preparing for an audit and we were going through everything and, opening up the power rooms, checking the chemical stores. We're doing everything we're supposed to do. And we're getting near the end and, you just kind of stick your head in and look and make sure everything was like the last time you saw it, getting them ready. The auditor was going to be there in a couple of days. And the AP opened up the big metal door to the back part of the custodial closet, had a second large closet for chemicals, and opened that one up and swung it open. And I stuck my head in. It was one of them where you kind of, like a dog on a chain, you whip your head back around. And there sat a 9-year-old boy at a desk in the chemical closet. And I said, "Who in the world are you?" He said, "It's okay. My daddy works here." Said, my daddy's got me this week and they're in school. And so my mama's working this week. And so daddy had to bring me to work. So he just locked me in here. It'll be okay. 9-year-old boy locked in a chemical closet in a school. Nobody knew he was there. The custodian had slipped him in to hide him. The custodian didn't survive it, of course. He got dismissed summarily that day. The principal survived it, but not at that school. She got moved immediately. You just can't have things like that happen, folks. The AP, that was pretty much the end of her career. She worked out that rest of that year on her contract, and that was the end of her. Because as soon as the mother found out that the father, who they were divorced, had stuck a kid in the chemical closet, she sued the district and won, by the way. Yep, the mother saw it as a financial opportunity and went to the news media, did everything in the world, just burn our house down until people had to, there had to be blood. That's the kind of stuff that happens. That's real. That happened at Druid Hills. So you better be checking. You better be knowing. You better be telling your folks. There has to be consequences for people who don't follow the rules, because there will be for you. When it hits the fan, there'll be consequences for you. So it's more do it from a positive. We want to keep everybody safe, but there has to be some teeth in it as well. All right, that's enough of that. We've covered our stars of the week. We've covered our assessment inventory. I want to talk about facilities a few minutes, and then we'll talk about our final case study. All right, so let me share my screen on facilities. This is a quick and dirty that Dr. Griffin Jordan put together for us. And it's really, as I said, I don't like to read these things. But when you're looking at facilities, there's more than just the assessment inventory. The stakeholders' needs and visions, occupant health and safety, implementation and evaluation, capital planning, training and managing staff, learning environment. All those things go into managing your facilities, not just keeping them safe and fire hazard free. There's a lot of that stuff. Now, the capital planning, usually you're not involved in that, but it happens. But that's a local thing, and usually they don't have school level people be involved in the planning of facilities. So here is for each of these, she has it defined what you're talking about when we talk about those areas. And I want to point out a couple here. You can see scheduled drills and inspections, school improvement team needs to be a part of this planning, critical incident response, safe space, drills and biweekly inspections, those kinds of things, training, the whole deal, that has to be a part of that. implementation and evaluation, you need to pay attention to your teacher working conditions survey. You know, what are your teachers and your faculty, your staff telling you about your facilities? Planning, you generally won't be involved in that. You might get asked a question, but generally you won't be. You've got to do your training on your people and make sure that they know what the assessment checklist is and what all those columns and what they all mean, so that they'll know what standard they're expected to meet. That's kind of for the building level person. Again, stakeholder needs and vision, you know, what do they need? That's from teacher working conditions survey. And so budget analysis, most of it comes from the local. There's hardly any money that comes from anywhere other than the local to pay for your facilities. And so it's usually a local thing, charter schools, LEA funding, budgeting. And then this is the one I wanted you to see. Fundraising best practices. We tacked that one on here. Don't compete with local businesses or child nutrition. We talked about both of those. No fundraising during instructional time. You're trading state dollars. You're paying teachers for local money. It's a bad trade. Be involved with PTA. You can delegate the activity, but not the authority. You got to make sure that they aren't out doing bad things or the money being gone. And you got to receipt the money each day. So that's pretty much that one. All right. Questions you have for me on facilities? All right, let me jump back in now. All right. Has anybody read our last case study? No. All right. All right. Well, that's good. That's okay. That's not a problem. That way you won't have any misconceptions. All right. First thing to understand is it's set not in this country. And that's just to throw you off, make you think a little bit. All right. All right. So let's talk about different things that we've learned this semester and how it works. Inclusive education. All right. So let's start out with what is inclusion versus mainstreaming? Josh, I'll start you off with the question tonight. You're first on my list here. What's the difference when we're talking about exceptional children's programs? What's the difference between an inclusion program and a mainstream program?
Inclusion is where you have two teachers in the room. You usually have a special ed teacher as well as the regular education teacher, and you have a combination of special education students along with the regular education students in the same class. Mainstream would be that there's just one teacher in the classroom, and it's just the regular education teacher.
Yep. And when they had to go to special ed, they pull them out, and it's just a special ed teacher in that class. That's exactly right. Very good. All right. So located in a semi-rural village in Chile's central region. Again, that's just to throw you off. The public preschool and elementary school employed 28 teachers, 2 head administrators. That's the principal and assistant principal, just like most schools, elementary schools have. 3 specialists take care of 300 boys and girls, and they're Title I. 60% of them are Title I. All right. The Parents Association, that'd be the PTA, was very concerned about the school scores on the nationwide standardized test, that'd be the state test, that their children were obliged to take, and been acting supporting school with extracurricular activities and resources for requiring materials. This was very important to them, given that once their child finished elementary school, they would continue their studies elsewhere, and their parents wanted them to get a good school in the larger cities closer to town. Eugenia was the principal, 44 years old, and served as principal for 3 years. She'd been selected for the principal job following a public call for applications run by the local board. Previously, she had been a teacher at the school. One day during an extra session of the Parents Association, the PTA, the third grade's parents delegate agreed to request a formal meeting with the principal to express the parents' concern about the lack of attention they felt their children receiving in class. In their opinion, the teacher of one class in particular was disregarding the needs of their children because she was overly concerned about the special needs kids. Sound familiar? Who had been placed in the class as part of the school's inclusion program. The meeting was requested by the president of the PTA, Umberto, a small-scale local farmer who had 3 children at the school. All right, before we go any further, anybody's radar up about potential legal problems already? What is FERPA?
Well, I mean, you can't give any information about any other kids in the class.
Right.
For one, can't talk about that.
Yep. Can't talk about other people's children. Got to be careful about that. So, would you take the meeting with this parent if they're concerned about the education for the entire classroom? Would you take the meeting with the PTA president? Yeah, you pretty much have to, don't you?
You can take it, but you can't talk about other people. You can talk about.
So when you took it, what would you make sure at the time that you reserved the time and you told the person that you would book a time with them? What would you make sure that you had in that email?
That we can discuss the issues that they have with their child, but I couldn't discuss other kids in the classroom.
Yep. Because they want to talk about them EC kids.
Right.
Oh boy.
Protected.
Yeah. Can you see a problem on the horizon here? Well, of course you can. So we have to make it clear that yes, we'd love to talk to you about the instructional program at our school with the PTA president, understanding that now we can't talk about specific children. We can only talk about your child. All right, so we set the parameters on that because this one's going to be this is like a hand grenade somebody's lobbed in on us. All right, the parents' concern. As the meeting began, Umberto spoke on behalf of the PTA and other parents in the class. He directed his concerns to the principal, Eugenia. Eugenia, we are here because we'd like to request that you speak to Sylvia, the teacher, because we feel that our children are not progressing as well as the kids in the other class. We're already comparing the kids in the other room. We're already getting on shaky ground. We believe Sylvia spends too much time with the special needs kids, and is not looking after the needs of the children without learning difficulties. Our children have also told us that for some time now, they've been instructed to help the kids in the inclusion program with assignments that Sylvia gives them in different subject areas. So the parents are coming in saying the kids are telling that they're being told that they're not getting taught, they're teaching the low kids in the room. Do you see a problem with that? Let's stop for a minute and talk about that. Liz, I need to hear from you.
I see a problem with that from the instructional standpoint, but I don't know what you can't acknowledge that to the parent that has the complaint.
Yeah, there you go. So that one is twofold, isn't it? That's why I called on Liz. Yes, it is a problem, but you can't acknowledge that to the parent because you'd be talking about somebody else's child then. But yes, is it a best practice to have your gifted kids teach your EC kids? Why, of course not. I had Andrew Messeri's principal at Pine Lake Prep charter school there, going out of Davidson into Mount Morn on Highway 115, northern part of Mecklenburg into the southern part of Ireland. And as I pointed out to Andrew, I don't know, probably 12 or 14 years ago when I had him in class, the longer the kids stayed at Pine Lake Prep, the dumber they got. Of course, that didn't make him happy. He's had a school there now. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, they all have to be above grade level for you to take them as a charter school. But look what happens to your 4s. They become 3s after a couple years. You're just warehousing the smart ones. You're working with some of them, but you're just warehousing kids. And I suspect, and I don't quote me on this, I suspect they were doing some of that as well, had the upper ones working with the others. But if you're just think about the material that those gifted kids are covering. What kind of is it gifted kid material that they're covering? They're covering remedial stuff that they probably knew a grade or two before. Will that help them do better, to grow, to learn at all? Absolutely not. So,
Well, question though,
Trying
because
to
you're
play devil's advocate, sorry. And I jumped in right when you said that.
teaching the kids based on, because state testing, we're all testing on the same level. So for 6th grade, you're supposed to be teaching the 6th grade material, the standards. You may modify it or whatever, but you're supposed to be teaching the same standards.
And with
except
inclusion,
you've got
we want
gifted
them to
kids
work
in the
together.
room. Do what
We got-
now?
I said with inclusion, we want them to work together though. So we're
Work together, but we're talking about we want to put them in cooperative groups, but we
agreed,
don't
but
want
we're
the
basing
smart
this
ones
off the
teaching
kids, right?
the not.
Yeah.
What they said happened. We don't know if it's
Oh, I
actually
know, but I'm talking about we're talking now. We're talking about is it a best practice to have your most capable kids sit and not learn any advanced
No, of course
curriculum?
not.
And what about AIG kids? Aren't they on a PEP as well?
They should be.
Yeah, and do you suppose the material that they're covering with the low kid is on their PEP? Not at
No.
all. See, that's another thing you run afoul of there is if any of those better kids, well, for lack of a better term, more advanced kids, if any of them are AIG, boy, you are in trouble now because you're not keeping up with their IEP. Liz?
Yes, I have looked it up multiple times. If you have an inclusion classroom, is there a percentage of EC children to gen ed kids that make it legal? If you're over a third, 50%, is it no longer a gen ed classroom?
50.
50%. Okay. And does that include speech and language IEP only, or it has to be the other areas?
Like LD or something.
Yeah.
Oh, pardon me, I just said I'm still here. Everybody, if they're doesn't matter what their designation is, if more than 50%, it's not an inclusion class. It's a mainstream class. It's supposed to stay. Now, preferably, you get in trouble if you get between 33 and 49. You can get in trouble. There's some conditions, but if you go over 50, that nothing saves you. It's no longer an inclusion model if you go over 50. And so one of the things that we tend to do, we tell teachers we'll balance it out by putting some AG kids in that room. And you got to be careful, even in an inclusion model, you got to be careful, even if they aren't teaching the low kids, you got to make sure that you're covering the material for them. Think about that from an administrative standpoint. Well, that seems like that would be a nightmare to me, to have to go from the very low to the very high and make sure you hit the IEP on both ends of those. But supposedly that happens a lot now. Now, I just tell you what, people tell me that in order that they kind of do that to balance out where, you got these difficult ones over here, so we're going to give you these easy ones over here. Except the problem is you just warehouse the easy ones too many times. And that's what I was talking about. I accused Andrew of doing at Pine Lake Prep. Now they stopped that, thank goodness. But he wasn't in charge then. But that's what I was pointing out. He was talking about we don't have any gaps. I said, well, of course you do. They're not falling below proficiency. They're not falling down to level 2. But I said your 4s, they become 3s. I know what's going on there. So
on the instructional end, the ones who end up losing as well is the ones who stuck in the middle.
Yeah, there you go, Larry. There you go, Larry. That's what I'm talking about here. This has ramifications, folks, on how you schedule your school. We talked about all the things you put together to schedule your school. I told you this case is going to hit everything we've done this semester, and everything that we did last semester that followed into this semester would be in this case. So the middle kid's going to lose out. You're either worried about the low kid or the high kid. The kid in the middle, he's just sitting there vegetating. Or you're putting the high kids to try to help the low kids and they vegetate. So what would you do at master schedule time is where I'm headed with this.
I know what I would do.
What would you do?
Because we've been fighting this for 2 years. Master schedule wise, somebody decided to put all of our EC kids in 2 classrooms per grade level. And now we're over 50% EC kids in those classes because they wrote the IEP as inclusion. So the EC teacher could go in and service them all at the same time. And it has not benefited anybody. And
we
I don't think it's legal.
For the convenience of the adults.
Yes. So we need to rewrite those IEPs. Yes. That we should have considered the EC needs for the schedule first. And I think that we should spread out the EC students across all classrooms and not follow an inclusion model and do a pull-out model to give everybody the instruction.
There you
I'd love
go.
to hear if that's not suggested, but gosh, this has been killing us for 3 years because one person made that decision and nobody wants to rewrite all those IEPs to walk away from the inclusion because we don't have enough EC teachers.
You also have to consider the least restrictive environment in that too, though. So that's one of the reasons you usually push towards inclusion is because you are putting those students with other students rather than completely isolating them away from those. So that's one of the reasons to go towards the inclusion model versus the other. But you have to schedule it effectively to assure that you don't have over that 50% and all those things are taken care of as well.
Yeah.
I agree. And I'll say from my district, we get too many kids coming from the public school preschool with an IEP that maybe didn't need the IEP, but we have to honor it from kindergarten. And we exit a lot of kids through kindergarten, but we can't rewrite all of those IEPs. And I'll say being a primary school of 950 kids, that's really hard to keep up with. So I would not advocate for any district to have a primary school of 950 kids because you can't keep up with it.
But what y'all are talking about goes back to the master schedule rationale. We made it for teacher, we took teacher input first rather than federal law and scheduling what the kids needed. We scheduled what the teachers wanted. That's how we got in this fix. That's how we ended up in Abilene. You know what? In business school, they teach the Abilene paradox. Me and Josh both ended up in Abilene in Texas in the summertime. Nobody in their right mind would go to Abilene anytime, but especially not in the summertime. How did we end up there? Well, he thought I wanted to go and I thought he wanted to go. And we didn't communicate and we both ended up in Abilene. In business, they call that the Abilene paradox. In this case, it was intentional. We ended up in Abilene because the teachers wanted what they wanted. And so the school and the kids ended up and not the teachers in Abilene. Because the teachers didn't want to do the right thing. They wanted to do the easy thing for themselves, as Liz pointed out. And that's how you end up with teacher input being first rather than last. And that's how you end up with dysfunctional schools and dysfunctional schedules. That's how you end up with low kids, middle kids, and high kids that you can't deal with in the same classrooms. That's how you end up with that stuff. That's how you end up writing IEPs that didn't need to be written because it was easier for the teachers to write them and pass them on than do MTSS and actually try to teach them. It was easier just to write an IEP and make it somebody else's problem.
And now we're losing teachers because of it. We have
Yeah.
angry parents and we have IEPs that can't be honored. We are in a situation.
Yeah, exactly. What I'm talking about. The adults didn't do the right thing because they did the right thing for themselves, but they weren't looking out. They weren't being champions for kids. They were being champions for teachers. That's why I said, as an administrator, you may be the only person in the building that actually wants to be a champion for kids. They did what was easiest for them. I hate to say that, but it's just the truth, folks, that they did what was easiest for them. So this case study goes back to why in the world. I mean, the teacher might be doing a bad thing here, got gifted kids in there and probably violating their IEP, having them work with the others. That's not a best practice. But the bigger question for you as a potential school administrator or emerging or even as young, some of you are in the job, what in the world is doing with all them those different levels of kids in the same room? Nobody else wanted them. No, we don't want them. Put them all on her. Well, that's not how that works. This is what's got to come first: federal law and programs, doing the right thing. That's how you get in situations like this. All right, back to session 11 here. On our time, we're doing fine on our time. Eugenia was surprised because she had never received a complaint like this before, the principal. She personally believed that the full and total inclusion of all students was essential to the school's mission, and personally had observed her teachers working hard to this goal. The school's mission statement, moreover, explicitly stated the same objective. Umberto, please be assured that I am listening very carefully to what you say, and I am noting your concerns so that I can bring it up with Sylvia. The principal responded amicably. After the meeting, Eugenia decided to take up the first issue with Ismail, her technical coordinator. That would be her instructional facilitator in our terms. A 27-year-old with 2 years of experience in the position. Obviously, he had taught as a university professor. He possessed more than one advanced degree. His opinions were well regarded and respected, but ask him to take a look at how the other teachers resolved the situation in their classroom. And on her own, she called Sylvia in to talk later that day. All right. So let's look at this section. What two things did she do wrong here? Did she know what was going on in the room? No. Was she able to say back to Umberto, that's not happening? No, because she didn't know. I wonder how many walkthroughs she's done in that classroom lately. None. All right. And then when a formal meeting was scheduled and you were the instructional leader of the school, what did she do next? Did she go in the classroom and look? No. She sent the instructional facilitator to go look and see what was going on. Is that a best practice? I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so. And then she called, then just wanted to talk to the teacher the next day. All right. And then Sylvia's the classroom teacher, 50 professors. She's been in elementary school. Very effective teaching method. However, she's been living in the countryside, offered a better quality of life. Might use her teaching expertise to benefit the local. Eugenia called Sylvia in to talk about the complaint made by the parents after exchanging. It's been yesterday. I received visit group parents who declared concerned their children are being held back by special needs children. Is that the proper way to say that? They're being held back by them? No. Or being asked to assist with them. Said the parents were worried children not learning. If you could shed some light on what's going on. How do you not know what's going on in your own classroom when you're the principal? I'm very proud to be able to work at school. Look, these just when you principals always care support inclusion for them. I'm concerned to make sure most of are to learn. Especially just sit them like understand what the finish them observe them well. So don't feel it's their kids. that their kids are learning less than kids in 3Bs. The collaboration with the children who are doing better is absolutely valid. It's an integral part of kids helping kids approach. It's a way for our top students to prove that they have learned by teaching it to others, but they're only teaching them the basic stuff. All right, so I'm going to kind of wrap. I need for you to read through the rest of this. I'm looking at our time here. I don't want to go through this line by line. I've kind of set this up for you now. I will say this. I don't want to let all the cats out of the bag. The whole point of the OMA was master schedule. That was the first problem, right? All right. Think about all the facets of that. The second problem I just introduced to you there is parents don't know about what the inclusion model is. Where in terms of long-term goals and parent activities of skip task 1 that we follow through all the way through to skip with, where would that plug into this particular case study? What should have been done at the beginning of the year? We should have had family inclusion night, shouldn't we?
Right. I would have had meetings with my parents and
There
let them
you
know.
go.
Yeah.
There you go. And we would have talked about our instructional program. So that kind of bookends our semester. The first thing we started with, the very first task was we're going to start building a master schedule. And there's a reason why we built it this way. The very last thing we did is we're going to have long-term goals. The short-term goals are just communication. For the purpose then of the long-term goals, which to get parents in our building and work with them, that bookends our semester on our evidences. We didn't do a good job scheduling the school, and then we didn't do those parent meetings on the end, and now we've got our PTA in revolt. This is real, folks. This is how it happens. This is not bad luck. This is not just the luck of the draw. This is not knowing and executing your job. The whole point of this semester was learn how to master schedule a school, to be champions for kids, get the best instructional practices, make sure that you're meeting all your federal laws and that you're doing the best job. You're setting your teachers up and your kids for the best chance to be successful. We ended the semester with, we need to make sure our parents are with us. We need to make sure that they're aware of everything that we're doing. If we want their support and them to stay with us and be behind us, we can't just assume that they'll know what we're doing. We have to have activities that draw them in and bring them in and keep them educated about what we're doing. That bookends our semester. This case study bookends and brings it all out. There'll be some things in this. That's why I said I don't want to go through the rest of it. I want you to read it with fresh eyes. You might have some different ideas and some better ideas and some more ideas about about this case and what we could do and what we should do. So this one's going to be comprehensive of everything that we've done this semester. All the laws, policies, FERPA, reporting, everything about that comes back to this case. Everything. You can't be too broad on this one. That's why, you've got, that's why I've tried to encourage you to get as far along as you could so you can spend a little time. And you're going to have a whole week. Won't have to have class next week. Going to have a whole week. You should be meeting and explore every different avenue. Take it in different directions. Surprise me. Bring something new, something different, something better. What could we take this bad situation? How could we turn it into an opportunity where we could do something good for kids? That's the notion of this one. So it's comprehensive of everything that we've done. Questions you have for me about this case study? Everybody good? Everybody know what we're doing with this one? Everybody understands the parameters? Nothing is extraneous to this one. I don't care what you pull out, it'll be relevant. If we've covered it this semester, it'll be relevant. If you want to talk about putting together a professional growth plan for teachers, I think that, remember, that's how you ended last. I think that would be relevant to this case. I think we need to do a data dive. Are the kids in 3A actually doing better than the ones in 3B? Now, we wouldn't go tell the parents that, but that's exactly what I'd do. That's the first thing I'd do. And I'd look at those upper kids and see, yeah, they're proficient, but are they moving from level 3 to level 4, or are they moving backwards? I mean, that's from the app sale from last semester. I mean, everything that you've learned so far, you ought to be able to plug it into this particular case. Do a data dive. What do our numbers tell us? Do we have a professional growth plan? Do our teachers know how to deliver inclusion? Have we just dumped them all, master scheduled them all to one poor old teacher and everybody else so that they can have their day free? We've dumped them in, and now we're not serving any of the kids in that room. Is that what we've done?
Is there actual training for that? Because a lot of times that's what they do.
Yeah.
They'll just in there and be like, okay, you guys are working together.
Yeah. Give you one of them. You go.
There you go.
Love you. Mean it. Yeah.
Bye.
I know. I know.
I mean, in my case, when they took the LD teacher out of our school and sent it to the other school because the numbers or whatever they were saying, and they gave me all the LD kids. I don't teach LD really. I teach ED. But I got them all now, and no one came in there and said, "Hey, how you doing? What you doing?" Not to this day. And just
No.
kind of, yeah.
No.
But one thing I do, I stay in constant contact with my parents, so
Yeah.
they all.
So they know what you're doing. That's that again. Long term goals. Making sure we keep those parents informed. I mean, the communication is only for the purpose of getting them in so we can keep them informed. Sean, you're in CMS, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
I tell you, we used to light our cigars with $100 bills. We had so much money in CMS. Those days are gone, though, aren't they?
Yeah, it is. It is gone.
And so CMS is really stretching to try to cover all the exceptional children. As a function of the population, CMS is well above the state average in the number of EC kids, well above.
We're losing a lot of our interventionists this year too.
Yep. Yeah, the money's running out for those. And for whatever reason, we have this notion that this is just a low wealth county problem. Unfortunately, it's not just a low wealth county problem. Urban areas, even if they're high wealth like CMS, tend to attract these problems as well. And so the notion here is don't get fooled by, oh, this is a low wealth place in Chile, Title I, low wealth place, and that's their problem. No, this can happen anywhere. That you don't master schedule correctly, you don't keep your parents involved, you don't do any training, you don't follow your data, you don't get in the classrooms to see what's actually going on. This is not a wealth problem, high or low. I want to make sure, because I've had folks that argued that in the past, that the problem here is low wealth. No, that is not the problem here. The problem is not low wealth. You have from what I've read to you so far, do you think that this principal is doing the things that a principal needs to do that we've talked about that you should be doing as a principal? Of course not. And so just as kind of a exit here, wealth is not the issue here. Wealth is not the issue. Sean and her bunch have the same problem in CMS, and they've got money. It's deeper than that. It's structural. You got schedules, master schedules that are being designed for the comfort of the adults. You got lack of PD. You've got lack of parent communication and integration into the building, bringing them in for things. You've got a lack of instructional supervision from the principal who never gets out of her office. I mean, we've got a laundry list of things here. Those are the things you need to be focused on, not the wealth issue or lack thereof. This is not a wealth problem. Okay. I wanted to make sure I covered that before we exited this evening. All right. Again, I read every word every day. appreciate your work. Make sure that you try to hit that cap before the end of the semester, because it's teacher working condition survey year in North Carolina. We're kind of jammed up on time over that as well, but try to get to the cap, the first 2 tasks of the cap, if you can, to collect that data before they shut schools down to start studying for the end of year test, whether it's end of grade or end of year. So, or end of course, excuse me, in South Carolina, end of year with SC Ready. You know that about 1st of May, they'll put a moratorium on surveys and talking to people. We go into testing mode. So make sure you get that done. Anybody have anything for the good of the group before we go tonight? Did I finish? I finished 5 minutes early. I can't believe it. All right. I'll see y'all. I'll see you next week. Y'all get to have Easter week off, don't you? Great day. You don't see it for 2 weeks. All right. I'll see you for case study 4 in 2 weeks. Everybody have a good holiday. Thank
Dr.
you.
Lamb, can I stay on with you
Yes,
for a minute?
yes, you can. I'm
Okay.
going to pause my recording and